to discuss all these issues, we have a panel here. General Gershon Hacohen, please join us. Gershon was, you can read about him, and you have a booklet with things about every and each person who is speaking. You can read about him over there, that he was the commander of the Northern Corps, and that he was the commander of the 36th Division, and many other things. But the truth about Gershon is that he is the most brilliant philosopher of military affairs in Israel, and that's why I love him so much. I try to speak with him, listen to his wisdom. We have with us Yifa Segal. I saw Yifa somewhere. Where is he? Ah, here. Yifa Segal. Advocate Yifa Segal, then again you can read about her, but she's a real fighter for Israel's rights on the legal front, what we call lawfare. And she was the lady that initiated the Israeli Legal Forum and was the head of it for 7 years, something like that. I used to cooperate with her on legal affairs, and she's amazing. And we have Sarit Zehavi. Do we have her? Where's Sarit?
She just came in. She'll be coming right back in. Okay,
so Colonel Sarit Zehavi. Whenever I see her, she reminds me that she was working for me when she was in the military. So but she's also, we speak about startup nation. She has a startup that is a very impressive one called ALMA that is focused on telling people about the threats Israel faces from the north. And she has established it several years ago, hosted a lot of people telling against us from Hezbollah, from the north. And she managed to turn this into a place where everybody who comes to visit Israel, one of the places it has to go to is ALMA. And, what we want to speak about is the war itself and how it is developing, and where should we go in this ongoing war. Everybody spoke about it lasting already for 11 months, and between us it's going to probably last for quite a few more months. So we have to take this into account. And I would like to ask Gershon, as a philosopher of warfare, what are the lessons of the way we entered this war and the way we fought it until now for our national security concept and for our military capabilities?
Okay, I prefer to stand, but before I'll just tell you, it is not a joke, it is a real story. You said that you love me because I'm thinking brilliantly. There was a Jewish philosopher, a lady in Princeton. She wrote a novel under the title The Mind-Body Problem. Of course, every philosopher knowing about the mind-body problem from the days of pre-Socratic era. But her novel is about a love affair between that lady and her professor, and she expected that he is falling in love with her mind, and then she was very disappointed to realize that he is just in love in her body.
I love your body too.
Actually, the Israeli doctrine, security doctrine, is under a severe challenge. Everyone that got a 60 minutes a lesson about that doctrine can speak about the 3 principles, maybe 4, but the main 3 of Ben-Gurion was that we are expecting early warning, the alarm. we are expecting decisive victory, and we are all wishing to get by that, after winning the war, to create a deterrence. The background for that basic principles is absolutely entrenched in a severe unsolved strategic tension. Ben-Gurion realized that tension and was aware about that, and he really paid a lot of attention to it. Regarding the military doctrine and security doctrine, he declares that in one side, we must accept the necessity to build and maintain a huge military organization before wars against Israel never ended. What we can get is just a pause, and we are expecting a long time of break between one war and the following war. On the other side, it means that we must be in absolute readiness every day. On the other side, he was aware that we cannot really keep huge military organization under daily readiness due to the fact that we have other national missions, economical growth, nation building, a collection of immigration. It is not really immigration, it is regathering of Jewish people to Israel. It is absolutely unique phenomena, different from immigration, but practically it is to bring them, to feed them, to build houses for them. It means a budget must be dedicated for that, not to build a very, very strong army. Therefore, by realizing that the tension basically is unsolved, he synchronized that tension with the idea that in one side we will build a small ordinary army supported by masses of reservists. This is a background for all that three principles. Therefore, we need early warning in order to bring the reservists. Without that, the small ordinary military organization will not be enough. Secondly, we must achieve decisive victory in order to bring a fast end and decisive end for that war, and to get deterrence for a long time, to get another decade for prosperity, education, cultural missions, etc. The very necessity that war must be short was a very central corner in that doctrine. How it was really challenged? It was challenged by our enemies in a deep realization of these three corners of the Israeli doctrine, and they did that very systematically. First of all, they built their forces and their own way of fighting in order to reduce the possibility of early warning. For example, after 1948, 56, 67, we had the Sinai Desert between the main location of Egyptian army and the border of Israel, the time that they are transforming their military units from the west side of Suez Canal to the east side to Sinai, really giving us early warning. What happened is that we lost all the indications for early warning, because if we are learning what's going on in Gaza, what happened in Hezbollah, and actually they created that idea, all the rockets, the missiles are absolutely ready inside the cities, the villages, in daily readiness. For example, in the operation in 2021, we call that Shomer Chomot, how to... Yes. The early warning that Hamas is going to launch rockets to Jerusalem was 1 hour. It is not at all a strategic warning. It is even not a tactical warning. And they did that very deliberately according to understanding how much we are expecting to get early morning. The other idea that we are really obsessed to get decisive victory, they build and invest a special effort of defensive ideas, defensive new systems of tunnels in the villages in the north or in the cities of Gaza, in which that they succeeded to deny the possibility of decisive, fast victory. It is not that we got much weak after 67. We are better than 67. But the enemy is different, and the warfare was changed. The warfare before the 21st century was just a side effect of Second World War. The whole warfare after the end of 20th century is absolutely under a revolution. This is what we can learn from the warfare in Ukraine. Why it is a war open-ended, even now, after almost 3 years, no one can really tell something about the end of that war, not because the Russians forgot all what they knew about fighting. It is due to new devices, very effective, very cheap. We will not speak about that now, but warfare really was under a revolution. In our expectation to get decisive victory, the idea was to transfer immediately the warfare to the territory of the enemy. They prepared themselves to that. They did that deliberately in a way that at the moment we will do that without well preparation, we will just lose our main units in that operation. In the same way that the Russians lost a lot of units. Beyond that, it is not only deniability, the whole idea is to deny. This, for example, Hezbollah not at all need a navy, but they can deny in the same way that the Houthi are denying the capabilities not only of Israel's navy, but also of the United States Navy, with land to sea missiles for long range that can really create the effect of deniability. Everyone today in military speaking, knowing very well what is that idea. It means that it is very dangerous to transfer immediately the warfare to the enemy's territory. Therefore, the decisive victory became very, very complicated. And they did that with a lot of means. For example, everything is built together with the civilians inside the cities. It is not Stalingrad that was taking place in build-up area. It is a war taking place not even among the people, it is taking place in the active life of the cities with new dimensions of the cities, like the tunnels and other. Beyond that, they created the idea of just bringing the Israeli doctrine to be captured in operational irrelevancy. What it means, we can invade Lebanon, we can take Beirut, and missiles will be launched to Tel Aviv beyond Beirut. And then in Tel Aviv, everyone will ask IDF, what you are going to find in Beirut if we are under that attack? And the negotiation will begin in the same way like the negotiation with Sinwar, because we will be the first to ask ceasefire because of operational irrelevancy. And we must overcome this idea. How to do that? We have a lot of ideas to do that. Just to conclude, I'll say something else, very important to everyone. We are fighting against mujahideen. The essence of jihad motivation, jihad inspiration is yet absolutely ignored. It was well realized by Sheikh al-Qardawi after 1967 that the Israelis are winning due to the fact that they are coming to fight by trusting God. This is the way he perceives us. And he decided that they must change that failure of the Arab warriors. The main revolution happened by Abdullah Azam in Afghanistan. Since that, all our enemies, Hezbollah, Hamas, all militia forces from Iraq, from Pakistan, etc., Iran, all of them are guided by the idea of jihad. It is absolutely different. In 48, 67, the soldier of Egypt came from a village in the delta of the Nile. He didn't have any idea about what he's doing in Sinai or Gaza Strip. At the moment the battalion collapsed, he wanted home. Most of the fighters today of the terroristic organizations are fighting in their home. They are not going back home. It is an absolute difference. And we must really learn the whole implication of that. Beyond that, in 1948, 67, 73, even 2006, the end of warfare in the Middle East, all the wars of Israel, came to an end due to the order of the whole global equilibrium between Russia, USSR, and United States. After the collapse of USSR, it was the only superpower, United States, that succeeded to create an end because they governed the order of the universe. Today, under a disorder in the whole universe, it is a global disorder. How really we can dream about a small order that will emerge here under that absolute, unique, chaotic disorder? Therefore, it means that the war is going to be long. Right now, it is open-ended, the same like Ukraine warfare, and we must prepare ourselves for a long warfare, absolutely different from the basic doctrine of Ben-Gurion that everything was established upon the idea that war must be fast with decisive, fast victory. This is...
To listing those ideas.
Oh, that's another...
Keep the interest going.
I'll give you a break until we do the circle and think about what can be done about those new ideas, because this innovation, creative mind, that innovative and creative mind, is what we need in this world. If I was a part of writing one of the booklets that are sitting out there, that's called A Plan for Improving the Situation in Gaza, or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Recovering Gaza. And I would like Yifa to speak about two things. First, what is the problem? And second, what needs to be done in order to have a better situation in Gaza?
A problem in Gaza? What do you mean? So we came together and tried to figure out and write a plan that would make sense for the day after in Gaza. We were hoping that it will take a short amount of time, but like Gershon, we are realists, and so we understood that despite the Western culture that we were all brought up in, the need for an immediate resolution is not always consistent with reality. And so it was clear that it will most likely will not be as short as we would like, but we still worked very hard to write the day after plan. And first thing that we wanted to focus on was to understand, to outline and to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes, let alone stupid mistakes that were made, I think primarily because of very good intentions and a bit of naivete of Western leaders, including Israeli leaders in the last 30 plus years. Looking at the threat of jihad, as Gershon said, looking at threats coming from the Palestinians. And so we're looking, first of all, at the Palestinian Authority. That was this is an entity that was created by Israel, created by the Oslo Accords. For all these years, they have been funding terrorism, inciting terrorism, paying rewards for terrorists, basically using every outlet available for them to make sure that every child brought up in under their control territory would be guided by two things: the hatred of Israel and the desire to use any means possible, preferably violence, to make sure that this entity, the Israeli entity, comes to an end. To a violent end. Second problem is, we've seen it with Hamas, all these nice fantasies about, let's buy time, let's give them money, let's, maybe hopefully one day they will change their minds and if they have a responsibility like, they're governing territory, right? This is a very popular misconception with the West. If you govern territory, that means probably that all of a sudden you have different set of considerations and maybe you don't want war anymore, now you want something else. And so, first of all, we wanted to make sure that we don't recommend making the same mistakes. And a lot of the paper that I recommend for you to read is based on that. What are the mistakes that were made? Why the Palestinian Authority cannot be, it doesn't matter if you dress them up very nicely in a white dress and a red bow or whatever the Americans call it, whatever words they use. It's still the same Palestinian. Reform, revived, revitalized, right? All these yeah, exactly. Nice. The English language is very rich with synonyms, and it's a very nice practice for those of us who are not English speakers natively. But it's the same thing. So basically, that's the fundamental principle. And the second one is to see what are the failures and what we can do in basically understanding that. Another Western misconception is that we don't want to pay a price today for anything. We rather kick the can down the road and hopefully maybe tomorrow the problem will somehow resolve itself, even though that's not how it works. And so another thing that we thought was crucial is to make sure that we understand what are the prices that we need to pay. What are the mistakes that we kind of kept alive? For example, UNRWA or other international organizations that we kept alive in the Gaza Strip. And what did work in the past across the world. And so there are two examples that we could think of that really worked in the last 100 years. And that is the reform of Nazi Germany. Right, the Marshall Plan, or the Marshall was just a part of the plan, but when the Allies took over Nazi Germany and then Imperial Japan. So what did they do there that worked, remarkably, amazingly, that didn't work anywhere else, right? Didn't work in Afghanistan, didn't work in Iraq. We have a lot of examples that attempts to change, to bring forth change that failed completely. Okay, so I'll make it very short because I can talk about it for a very long time. But the plan that we wrote there are four fundamental principles to the plan. First of all, Israel must have full security control over the Gaza Strip, full stop. Full stop. We can't let them run wild. We've seen what happens when you have an enemy that wakes up in the morning every morning, and this is something that we as people of Western societies don't understand. Every morning, they wake up trying to think of how they can bypass our defenses. What is the best, fastest, most efficient way to kill us? And if it's not today, then it will be tomorrow, but they will plan for this, and this is their daily itinerary every day. So we need to be there present every day, making sure that they don't have new weapon capabilities coming out of Egypt, as we saw, that they don't build new factories to manufacture these rockets and ammunitions, et cetera, building tunnels, everything that we've seen. So full Israeli control, full stop, including over the Philadelphia corridor, a security barrier with the Israeli communities in the eastern part of the Gaza Strip, and all of that. Second thing is that we need to understand, as I said, that indoctrination, education, the mindset of the people, that eagerness to kill, the fact that they bring up children, explaining to them that the best thing that they can do with their lives in this world is to kill a Jew. And until we change that mechanism of indoctrination, we cannot ever hope for any other type of a reality in the Gaza Strip. And so we have to make sure that we go in there and we change the mechanism of indoctrination. That's what they did in Nazi Germany, by the way, or in Japan. So changing the educational system, changing the curriculum, changing the textbooks, bringing teachers from other places in the Arab world. There are details in the program. I recommend that you go in and read them. So denazification, as we call it, de-radicalization, all of that, it's not just the schools, it's after-school activities, at the mosques, everything that is a part of the mechanisms of indoctrination. Number 3 is to decentralize the control of the Gaza Strip. And what do we mean by that? Is if you create a new entity that has one central control, a government or a semi-government or an autonomous rule, whatever you want to call it, then you basically create another problem for yourself. You put all your eggs again in one basket. There is very little leverage that you can have. Just have a look at what is going on with the Palestinian Authority. We don't like it. The Americans don't really like it. There's a lot of criticism, but people are too afraid to let it go bankrupt because it's either them or, oh my God, there's a vacuum, there's chaos. Everyone's always too afraid of letting the whole thing collapse because that's the one thing that we know and the one thing that we have. And so if we divide the Gaza Strip, by the way, like they did in Germany, if you go back and read the Marshall Plan and all of that, then you create a few local governments. And then if one angel turns out to be a devil, right? As we, not all of us, but some of us thought maybe Yasser Arafat is an angel. All of a sudden, God touched him, and now he wanted to advance peace. But then turns out, no, he was still a terrorist. We were stuck with him. But if you have 6 or 7 or 8 different local authorities, and one of them go rogue, or they assassinate one of them, or whatever, then the whole thing doesn't go to hell. And of course, it's a lot easier to control if there is a rebellion in one local district. And you can incentivize. There's also a positive angle to this as well. You can incentivize the districts that are doing better, that are improving, that are cooperating, that are creating financial bridges, social bridges with Israel, with the American, with the Sunni states that are part of the new Arab world, hopefully. So that's number 3. And number 4 is that we created a list of benchmarks. It's not a closed list. But we suggest to condition international aid and to the construction of infrastructure and everything that we already know will happen in Gaza regardless of what will be the day after, because the world loves to pour money into that corrupt entity regardless of what is the reality on the ground. We've said it for years, you could have paved the entire Gaza Strip gold with all the money that they have taken and stolen over the years and used it for terror purposes. So condition it. why not condition it? Here's a list of benchmarks. If you support terrorism, all these bad things, then you get less support. If you do positive things, you have, a conflict resolution mechanisms, and there's cooperation, all these things that we've said, you get more support. And the last idea is to have some kind of an international, obviously a framework of support internationally. I won't go into it. There is a lot of details in the plan that we wrote. So I invite everyone to have a look. And again, I just want to emphasize the main idea is we've made mistakes in the past. Let's learn from them. Let's not repeat them. I want to say something about the interim period. If I have another minute, Cooper? So we know that there will be, more, maybe months, maybe a year or two before we can hopefully implement the plan that we have or something similar to that in Gaza. So what do you do in the interim period? So the interim period has been going on for a while now, and I think it's time, we all think that it's time to do something about it, something different. So right now Hamas has control over a lot of the humanitarian supply going into the Gaza Strip, and they rob a lot of it, and they also use it, it's a mechanism of power, it's a leverage over the civilian population, and there's a lot for us to lose as long as Hamas is in control of that. That's one thing. Second, when we allow them to control the supply and to control the people. And so we believe that there should be a solution that we construct mechanisms, at least in the areas of the Gaza Strip, that we have better control, like in the north. There are situations like, for example, after earthquakes or after wars, there are encampments that the UNHCR creates for refugees. And you can have Gazans come and make sure that it's a Hamas-free zone in those encampments, and then you can start being the one delivering humanitarian aid through the local population in the camps, and you strip that power away from Hamas. So I don't want to go into that. We're writing a detailed plan, but that's the idea. I just want to make sure I say it, that as long as Hamas keeps the power of the humanitarian supply, we are giving our enemies a lot of power, and we need to find ways to strip them of that power.
Thank you. I want to emphasize that the plan was written by Yifa, Morris, who's here. Raise your hand. Morris Hirsch, Advocate Morris Hirsch, Ori Sachar, who spoke in the beginning, and myself, and it's a joint effort of the IDSF and the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. That's the new name of JCPA. So it's out there. Sarit, what is going on?
Who is making the clicks? איך עושים? חץ למטה, בוא נראה. Let's see the video. This is Monday, last week, 5 minutes from my home. It's a school bus. There are sirens. The children were ordered to evacuate from the schools half an hour before what you see here, less than half an hour. And the sirens caught them on their way home while they were in the school buses. And you can see them running. They were ordered not to run, but they were running, and that's the result. Hits in the open areas and some interceptions above the town. The name of the town is Ein Yaakov. That's 5 minutes from where I live. My daughter was home alone. She went to the bomb shelter with the dogs. This was one of the toughest moments for me as a mother. Before being an expert, everything I'm going to talk about, this cannot continue. That's it. And this is happening every day, including this morning. Drones of Hezbollah were flying above schools in Nahariya this morning. I live 9 kilometers from the border. This is a non-evacuated community. We are 200,000 people that are living in non-evacuated communities in the north of Israel that are under this threat every day. This is the map of the evacuated communities. We have 60,000 Israelis that are displaced. This is the term we should use. We should stop talking about evacuees. They are displaced in their own country. And nobody knows when they are going to come back. By the order of the government, they are displaced. They were displaced from the fear of an invasion of Hezbollah, just like what Hamas had done. Later, it's the fear of anti-tank missiles that are being launched because these communities are right at the border. And today, it's just incapable of bringing them back because nobody can promise them security. It's a pretty stable war of attrition since October 8th, since it started. Ups and downs a little bit, you know, the March 14 and August 25, and an attack here and an elimination there. Bottom line, it's a pretty stable war of attrition, while Hezbollah is declaring that it is launching its munitions mostly to military targets, but in reality, when they launch 60 rockets to Kiryat Shmona that are inaccurate rockets, it means that it hits everywhere in the region, including in Kiryat Shmona. 60 rockets in one barrage, not the whole day. This is the reality that we are experiencing, and that's how you get half of the targets were actually civilian targets. So what is changing in the past 10 months? This is changing. 11 months, right. This is changing. It means that in the past 11 months, as I've said, it's a pretty stable war of attrition, almost 3,000 attacks. If you want to count the missiles, that the numbers are being published non-officially, so I'm not doing that, but it's probably more than 10,000 missiles and rockets that were launched from Lebanon, not including the drones. What is changing is the shooting to non-evacuated areas. And if at first we saw, as you see in my graph, that this is happening mostly when Israel is attacking commanders in Hezbollah, today we can say that this is happening in different reasons. If Lebanese civilians are hit or killed or injured, if Hezbollah says that Israel targeted villages in Lebanon because Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure is in the villages of Lebanon, eventually we end up with this. So in the past 3 months, it's a pretty stable reality of shooting also to the non-evacuated areas, and I believe September will be pretty much the same. Not letting alone what's happening in Lebanon, IDF is attacking in Lebanon Hezbollah infrastructures every day. It became more intense, a little bit more intense, I would say, would be modest, a little bit more intense in the past few months. There are damages to Hezbollah, there are damages to the towns, the Lebanese towns next to the border. Pretty much of a mirror picture with regard to displaced or evacuees, except in Lebanon they were not evacuated by the order of the government, they just evacuated, and they will be compensated by Hezbollah, let's not be mistaken, not by the Lebanese government who doesn't have the money and can't afford. There were some achievements to IDF with these attacks. This is a very impressive one, about almost 50 commanders of Hezbollah that were killed since this war started. This is not a strategy. You cannot win the war or bring us security only by doing this. Much more is needed. A lot of missiles and rockets were launched, but actually it's the tip of the ice of the capability. I'm looking at your faces, so I've met many of you in the past, and you've seen this. And when we talk about numbers of projectiles, you understand that very little was hit and very little was launched comparing to the amounts. And I want to say something about the drones. A few years ago, we published, before the war in Ukraine, we published a report about the drones, the Iranian UAV army, and we wrote that Hezbollah has 2,000 drones. And I received phone calls of people telling me, Sarit, what are you doing? You exaggerated. 2,000 drones in the hands of Hezbollah? Today, we had around 400 incidents of drones that were launched by Hezbollah. This means more than 1,000 drones. So exactly, the issue of supply, and supply is the key here, like what happened last night in Syria. This is part of the attacks against the routes of supply. What was attacked yesterday in Syria by whoever is the factories that are manufacturing the PGMs, maybe the drones, maybe missiles, we don't know exactly. But this is highly important to stop the supply routes. That's also the ranges of the rockets, tip of the ice. The second threat is this. These are all photos that were taken by me on the border before the war. These are all Radwan brigades terrorists that were watching me on the border, and they had exactly the same plan as Hamas. I don't have time to present it, but there is a video that was published 10 years ago that shows the plan of occupying the Galilee. That's the Hezbollah title, okay? Taking over the Galilee. I always thought this plan is an exaggeration, Hezbollah propaganda, and then it happened in the south. Step by step, the idea of taking civilians as hostages to become human shields exists in this plan of Hezbollah that was published a decade ago. And that's why it's so important not only to bring to a ceasefire in the north, but also to eliminate the capabilities of Hezbollah and to make sure that these guys are not on our border anymore. Goals. I hear a lot about pushback, withdrawal, pushing Hezbollah north to the Litani River, pushing Hezbollah 8 kilometers from the border. There is no pushing of Hezbollah who lives in South Lebanon. As you can see, 67, this week it's already 67% of the terrorists who were killed by Israel during the current war live in the UNIFIL area of operation. They live there, they were buried there. It's a local militia, it's not, or a terrorist army if you like, it's not an external power that took over South Lebanon. You talked about indoctrination of hate. This is the indoctrination of hate by Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's a video from Beirut. We have tons of these. I just chose one because I think that's the one that also brings you the values that they are educating for, which is loyalty to the supreme leader of Iran. It's not loyalty to the president of Lebanon, there is no, or to the prime minister of Lebanon, which is an interim prime minister. It is loyalty to the supreme leader of Iran. This is an elementary school of Hezbollah in Beirut. If you want another example, more from recently, this is from a month ago, a meeting between Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, with one of Hamas leaders. Another Hezbollah person sits with him. That's until now, okay, you understand, Hamas, Hezbollah, terrorist organization, coordinating, but look what's on the wall. On the wall it's Khamenei and Khomeini and Jerusalem. This is the goal. This is the cause. We can talk of 4 scenarios. You ask me what will happen. I don't know. I think the first 2 are more probable than the second 2. A breakdown of the talks, we are already there. So pretty much more of the same. The problem with more of the same is that it will not last. Eventually, something will happen. I really, really hope that we are not going to pay the price of children again. It already happened. We had 12 Druze children who were killed. I am worried from the kids who are going to school every morning in the north. I am very much worried. I'm worried about
the Russian roulette.
it. It completely.
The fact that it yet not happened.
Take the microphone.
Today, it is just a chance.
You have to believe in God. Huh? Significant escalation, it's also very probable. And I deliberately didn't put Israel going to war, Israel initiating war, Israel will decide to go. I think all this framing of the current conflict as if Israel will go to war is a mistake. We are at war. And it was initiated by Hezbollah in October 8. The question is when Israel will finally decide to defend us. That's the question, not when Israel will go to war, full-scale war, escalation. After August 25, I was interviewed many times in British media. Everybody asked me the question, do you think this will bring to more escalation? This is not a question. This is not a question. I'm not sure whether Iran will join directly, not because I'm not not because I'm positive that it is not interested in this in general, but because I think that the Americans are here, and as long as the Americans are here, why would the Iranians do something that will put them at risk? And yet, I'm saying that very, very carefully, because I think that the main lesson that we have learned, ex-intelligence officers, is that we can hardly predict the intentions of our enemies, if ever. Can hardly predict them. And that's why I try not to talk about what's going on in Nasrallah's head or Khamenei's head or whatever. Ceasefire in Gaza, I put it the last one deliberately because I'm not sure whether Hezbollah or Hamas are truly interested in a ceasefire and what kind of a ceasefire. And I know Gaza is not my field, but I feel that, and I felt that from day one, that President Biden promises to pay, but at the same time, trying to weaken the resilience of the Israelis and the resilience of the state of Israel. So what could be done? I think we should do more in every aspect that is written here. And I deliberately wrote international community with the biggest part because, guys, we cannot do that alone. It's not Israel-Hamas war. It's not Israel-Hezbollah war. This is Iran's war, Iran's campaign against the Western presence in the Middle East. And if you consider yourselves part of the West, it's your war as well. And if it's not your war now, it will be your war in the nearby future. So we should be in this together, and we should make the thinking of the solutions together. And you should not put the responsibility on our shoulders to fight the nuclear efforts of Iran. It's our responsibility to fight it. Offensive initiative, it's a nice IDF term, but the idea is that, I don't know if we shouldn't declare a campaign. We should just do more. This is what I think. IDF can do more, even below the scale of a full-scale war. We've seen August 25. It was a successful operation militarily, even though it didn't prevent the Hezbollah attack, and we did have 200 missiles that some of them fell not very far from where I live, and we could see them from my balcony.
A preemptive strike?
To Tel Aviv.
No, but not a preemptive offensive.
I agree. At the same time, since everything that was said here, Israel should have better plans for community defense. All these communities that are next to the border should be defended in a different way. Deadline is extremely important. We cannot negotiate forever. We have been negotiating for too long. We cannot negotiate forever. The people that are displaced, the Israelis that are displaced, they don't have time anymore. The families are collapsed. The communities are collapsed. The children are suffering. These stories are not being told. We need to find a way to bring them back home and to rebuild the Galilee, and there should be a deadline for all these negotiations. And at the same time, if we decide, and all the time I'm saying we, I mean Israel and the West, if we decide to go to a diplomatic arrangement, let's not fool ourselves anymore. 2006 solution was fooling ourselves, and we knew it. UNIFIL is not willing to clash with Hezbollah. Lebanese army is not willing to clash with Hezbollah, as Hezbollah is not willing to push back, withdraw all these talkings to north to the Litani River. It may sign on this kind of an agreement, but monitoring is the key. Who is going to make sure that Hezbollah is not deceiving us again? This is a...
Thank you very much. We should conclude here, but let me just say one word about the connection between the fronts. Amir and myself and some other members of the IDSF had prepared a paper recently and presented it to the government about the need to do more in the north while maintaining the effort in Gaza. We need to do more in the north, and what we are doing until now is not enough. And from what Sarit has described here, it's clear that this is the case. So not only that we are not nearing the end of the war, there might be more escalation coming in the short future. Thank you very much to all of you. And,
I just wanted once, and here I have to tell them about what we have to do.
yes, right.
The first change the whole Israelis must take seriously is to stop dreaming about peace. It is an illusion. Because peace, even if it is existing as it is existing between Israel and Egypt or Jordan, it is interim, tomorrow a new day. The same about peace between Germany and France. One day they will fight again, because peace is just a break between warfare. The basic situation of the whole universe, even at heaven with God, it is struggle. And therefore Israelis must stop asking themselves how long we will have to carry the sword. Forever. No liberty without a sword. Once I found a children's book in the United States. I like them. It was about the independence war of the Americans. It was ended with the following words. The war for independence is over, but the struggle for liberty never ended.
Thank you very much.